The auctioneer called it 3 times. First, at $800. Silence. He dropped to $600. A few people looked up from their phones, glanced at the orange tractor sitting at the far end of the lot, and looked back down. He dropped to $400. A man in the back row laughed. Not cruelly, just the way people laugh when something confirms what they already believed. Nobody moved. Nobody raised a card. Nobody wanted the Allis-Chalmers 185 sitting in Lot 14 at the Hendricks County Farm Auction on a cold Thursday morning in March. Nobody except one. Thomas Reidy was standing near the fence line when he raised his card. He was 47 years old, a part-time mechanic and full-time grain farmer from just outside Danville, Illinois. He had driven 2 hours to this auction for a different reason entirely. A grain cart in Lot 6 that had sold an hour earlier for more than he was willing to pay. He had been about to leave when the auctioneer started calling Lot 14. He stayed. He raised his card at $400 and nobody followed. Thomas Reidy bought the Allis-Chalmers 185 for $400. The man next to him shook his head slowly. That thing will cost you more to haul home than it's worth. Thomas didn't answer. He was already walking toward it. The 185 had been sitting at the edge of that auction lot for 2 days before the sale. Anyone who had wanted to look at it had. Most had spent less than a minute before moving on. What they saw was discouraging on its surface. The orange paint had faded and chipped down to bare metal in wide patches across the hood. The left rear tire was flat. The seat foam had split open and the vinyl had curled back at the edges. There was an oil stain beneath the engine that had dried into the gravel over what appeared to be a long time. A cracked rubber seal on the hydraulic coupler had leaked long enough to leave a dark streak down the rear axle housing. Everything about its appearance said the same thing. This machine has been neglected. This machine has been forgotten. This machine is going to cost someone more than it gives back. Thomas saw all of that. He also noticed several things the other men had not stopped long enough to see. The frame was straight. No bends, no stress cracks at the welds, no evidence of hard impact damage. The front axle pivoted smoothly when he pushed it by hand. No binding, no seized pins. The engine block showed no frost cracks, even though the machine had clearly sat outside through at least one winter. The hydraulic leak on the rear axle was weeping, not pouring, the kind of leak that comes from a dried seal, not a failed component. He tried the key. Nothing, which he expected. The battery was long dead. But the engine turned over freely when he bumped the starter directly. No seized pistons, no locked crank. Whatever else was wrong, the internals had not been destroyed by sitting. Thomas loaded on his flatbed and drove it home. He started the teardown on Saturday morning with no agenda, other than understanding what he had bought. The oil in the sump was thick and dark, but present. Whoever had owned this machine last had at least kept it filled. The fuel tank held old diesel that had gelled at the bottom, but had not contaminated the injection pump badly enough to score its internals. The air cleaner housing was clogged with debris, but intact. He was working through the cab, removing the ruined seat to get access to the wiring harness beneath it, when the seat base came loose and he saw what was underneath. Not a wiring problem. A wooden box. Flat. Handmade. The kind built from scrap lumber by someone with basic tools and a practical mind. It had been fastened to the cab floor beneath the seat with 2 small bolts, hidden completely when the seat was in place. The wood had darkened with age, and the small latch on the front was stiff with rust, but it opened. Inside, wrapped in a piece of canvas cloth that had kept out most of the moisture, were 3 items. The first was a service manual, not the factory-issued version, but a hand-annotated copy, its margins filled with notes in 2 different sets of handwriting, specific observations about this particular machine written over what appeared to be decades of use. The second was a folded document, legal-sized, creased soft with age. Thomas unfolded it on his workbench and read it twice before he understood what he was looking at. It was a notarized bill of sale, dated 1971. Original purchase from an Allis-Chalmers dealership in Terre Haute, Indiana. The buyer's name was Harold Voss. The purchase price, in $1971, was listed in full, and below the standard sale language, in the dealer's handwriting, a single added line, serial number verified, first production run, Deutz-sourced engine variant, dealer demonstration unit. Thomas set the document down. He picked up the third item, a photograph, black and white, slightly faded. A man standing next to a brand new Allis-Chalmers 185 in front of a dealership. On the back, in pencil, Herald. Opening day, October 1971. Thomas stood in his shop for a long time. Then he sat down and started researching. What he found over the following 2 weeks changed the number on that machine considerably. The 185 he had bought for $400 was not a standard production unit. The Deutz-sourced engine variant from the first production run of 1971 was one of a limited number built before Allis-Chalmers transitioned to a different configuration mid-year. Collectors have been looking for verified examples for years. The notarized bill of sale, the original dealer documentation, the hand-annotated service manual tracing the machine's full history from new. That paperwork transformed a rusted tractor into a documented, verifiable piece of agricultural history. Thomas did not restore it to working condition. He restored it to original appearance, carefully, with the annotated manual as his guide, preserving every detail that made this specific machine what it was. He turned down the first offer in month 3. He accepted an offer in month 7 from a private collector in Ohio who had been searching for a verified first-run example for 11 years. The final sale price was not something Thomas discussed publicly. But the man at the auction who had said the machine would cost more to haul home than it was worth drove past Thomas's farm the following spring and noticed that the old grain cart shed had been replaced with a new steel building. He didn't ask about the Allis-Chalmers. He already knew he didn't want to hear the answer.